All right. Looks like we are going live. Here we are. We are live. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. I can't believe I haven't met our guest speakers before because we all work at Power to Fly. But that's also the beautiful thing about working digitally and remotely. I here love hosting these Chat and Learn programs as moderator. So I get to dive in deep on some awesome conversations, and they do their magic and their wonder at Power to Fly. We're going to meet them in just a few moments. They're going to introduce themselves. But before we dive into our conversation today, I want to go over some quick housekeeping rules so that we all feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. So participation is key. Lots of crazy things going on in the world. Of course, I don't need to remind you all. You could be doing anything else with your time, but you're deciding to spend your time with us. So I invite you all to be present with us for this next hour, and you can participate, show your presence and by participating, and you can do that in a number of ways. You can turn your cameras on if you feel called to do so. Of course, no pressure there. I know that there's a lot of digital fatigue and video fatigue happening these days, so you are not required to turn your camera on, but I invite you to participate by turning your camera on if you feel called to do so. I've muted everyone upon entrance just to avoid any background noise, but I can't stress enough, we want to hear from you in this next hour, so feel free to hop off of mute whenever you have something you want to share. You can also participate by utilizing the chat box. You can drop any questions, any reflections, any dreams, anything, any tips and tricks of your own. We would love to hear from you, and participation is key. So again, you are spending the hour with us. Please participate and be present with us here. If you do hop off of mute, you will be featured in our live recording as this is being recorded. And that reminds me, if you are joining live, you will get a rewatch email with the link to this recorded chat and any resources that our guest speakers bring up throughout the hour. So be sure to look out for that rewatch email. And the last thing I'll say is we'd love for you to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. Now, if this is your first time joining a chat where I'm moderating, I'll just take a couple seconds to introduce myself. So I live in San Martin de los Andes in Patagonia in Argentina, originally from California. I love speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence in the workplace and at home and in our communities. So if anyone wants to philosophize with me in this hour on emotional intelligence, be my guest. I think that we need to talk more about emotional intelligence. Maybe we can start asking some questions to hiring managers about, how they're practicing emotional intelligence and how you can bring emotional intelligence to their team. And I'll just invite you all to share the project that I'm working on. You can go to thepositiveforceteam.org and sign up for our newsletter, or I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speakers. Marina and Catalina, go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we'll roll into the questions that folks have submitted previous to the chat. And I just want to also flag that we might be switching languages here. We might be going from English to Spanish. So if anyone, prefers to ask their question in Spanish, feel free to hop off mute and ask your question, or you can write that in the chat box. Otherwise, we will keep it founded in English, as I think the majority of our callers here are speaking English today. But I will pass the mic now to Catalina and Marina.
Hello, I'm Catalina. Catalina. I'm in Medellin, Colombia. At the moment, I have lived also in Argentina, like our other two Power to Fly people here. Love that country. It's the love of my life. Been in Power to Fly for about over a year as a senior talent advocate, but have been in recruiting for around 10 years now, probably. So that means exposure to a lot of different industries and types of companies, sizes, and different processes. So any questions that you may have, don't feel limited because of a setting that is already, what I mean is if we're talking about engineers, it's okay if you jump in and you want to talk about designers, it's fine. We should be able to talk about everything. That's it. Very excited to hear your questions and what you're curious about, to be able to help.
Awesome. Well, I'm Marina, or Maru, as you might find me somewhere in the virtual world. I've been with PowerToFly almost pre-pandemic. I would say now life is pre or post-pandemic. So right before the pandemic hit, I began working here also as a talent advocate and a career coach. I'm a psychologist and a coach, and I've been recently moving a bit away from the talent advocate role into training and onboarding management positions. So I'm also been working in the talent industry for 17 years, I think, already. So also very open to discuss anything you need. We're here to help you show the best you can to advance in your careers and get everything that you need to get the job that you want, or to be able to discuss and have open conversations with anyone in the workplace that will help you grow professionally. So also very excited about this opportunity and being able to share some tools on how to do better in this virtual career settings that we're having. Oh, I forgot to pause. So that's all for me. We can go ahead and begin, and I will pause my notifications on Slack, sorry.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your introductions. And so I'm sure we're going to learn more about both of you as we roll into the questions. So feel free to share more of your journey as you see fit. So as some of you know, next week, from the 18th to the 21st, we have a summit here at PowerToFly, virtual summit, lifting Latinx voices all over the world. And then we have a virtual career fair that we're ending the summit with. So, if you all can kind of think about your future selves, what would you like to, how would you best prepare yourself for this virtual career fair? Now is the time to ask those questions so that maybe, between now and the 18th, you can have some time to prepare and prep yourself so that you can bring your best self to the table. And I just want to shout out folks who are writing already in the chat box where they're calling from. So we've got New Jersey representing, Dallas, Texas. We've got Ecuador, we've got Colombia, we've got San Francisco, California, Chicago, Buenos Aires. Great. So thank you all for joining and for dropping that in the chat box. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can open up the questions here that you all have submitted. If you all hear your question come up, we would love to know that you're here. So you can just drop in the chat box. Let us know if we've answered your question thoroughly, or if it brings more questions to mind. If you don't hear a question come up, maybe you didn't have a time to submit it on the website, or maybe something comes up in the moment. Again, feel free to drop that in the chat box or hop off of mute. So this first question that was submitted, what should we expect from the virtual job fair? I'm going to just give an overview based on my experience as I've moderated for several different companies, and I really enjoy it. So 3 hours of being able to hop in and out of different companies that will be basically showcasing why they value it, diversity, inclusion, and equity in the workplace, what you can expect as far as the application process, the interview process. They will give a presentation at the beginning of the hour, and then they will go into live Q&A. So when we go into live Q&A during these times, that will be time for you to jump off mute or write in the chat box. When I'm moderating, every moderator has their own way of facilitating, which is beautiful. The way that I like to moderate is I give preference to people who want to hop off of mute and turn their cameras on and have that virtual one-on-one time with the hiring team or with people that are being representing the company on the virtual career fair. So that's just my way of doing it, because of course we would love to do it in a physical space, but it's also nice to do this in a digital space because that means that lots more people can participate. So when we get to the live Q&A portion of the virtual career fair, I like to give preference to people who want to hop off mute and have that personal time with the folks who are representing the company. Of course, though, you're more than welcome to drop any questions in the chat box, and the moderator will bring that up to the team there. But the thing that I would just say is, don't be afraid to ask questions that are, challenging. I mean, we're living in a time where we have to be more responsible with diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace, where we have to, expect that from companies and businesses. So if you, are afraid to ask, how do you practice inclusion in the workplace? I would just say, don't be afraid, ask those questions. The worst thing that can happen is they say no or they don't answer, which if they're on this virtual career fair, they probably have some things that they want to share that they're excited about, how they practice inclusion and diversity and equity. So don't be afraid to ask, really tough questions, because it is a partnership. If you get hired, basically it's a partnership. You're giving a lot of energy and time to this company. So you want to make sure that you're asking any questions that come to mind. And that's just how I'll start off by answering that question. If anyone has anything they'd like to add, Kata and Maru, if you want to add something, feel free to do so now. Otherwise, I'll go on to the next questions.
Questions? Yeah, I'm sure questions will trigger more exciting things to share.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Okay, so let's start with this first question here. How do I coach myself through imposter syndrome when attending these events?
Okay. Should I go? Okay. So that's a tough question. Imposter syndrome. I think that's a big thing. There is basically what I can say is, I think we all go through imposter syndrome at some point in our careers, or more frequently than other people think. I think that the best advice I can give there is trust yourself, that you know better than anyone everything you have to offer to others. So it's just a matter, it's also, I think that many people talk about imposter syndrome when sometimes they are shy, or there's other things going on around it. So if you are, think of what is the goal that you want to achieve going to a virtual career fair. So if you're looking for a job, if you're looking to pivot to a new industry, what is it that you want to achieve? Maybe it's just knowing more about other companies that I don't know, caught your eye for some reason, or just learning what other things. I mean, make sure you know what is it that you want to get from that, and then go for it. I mean, it's just a matter of going through all your own barriers. Know that if you're shy, it's maybe put a smaller goal of, I don't know, being able to ask a question on chat. You don't have to do it all out. Like, of course, Mariela said, it's best if you go on camera and you are comfortable talking, unmuting yourself. But if it's your first one and you want to start slow, and it's just listening to what others are asking, or asking just one question on the chat box, it's a long, there's a lot of companies that are going to participate next week. There's several days. So you can always start small and then try out with a company that maybe you don't care of that much, to practice. And then once you feel more comfortable, go to the one that you really are looking for. So you have a lot of chances and opportunities. But I mean, you are great. You have a lot to give. If you don't believe that, nobody else will. So make sure you know everything that you have to offer to others. That's my 2 cents. I don't know, Kata.
Yeah, and I think it is common. I mean, that you feel a little bit as an imposter, but it's kind of like something that you have to become friends with, because if you think of it, it's an actual role play. Like, you are, for example, an engineer and you're interviewing. Okay, you do interview with recruiters. We're used to doing this. We try to make it an easy conversation. We do this all the time. So it may be a little more natural. Of course, we all filter in as well. So you know that you're being evaluated, and that feels a little different than a common conversation. But if you think about it, you're also going to interview with people that are engineers or marketing people, and they are also role playing at the same time that you are. So you're kind of in the same situation. It's normal if you feel a little bit like an imposter, but it's just because this isn't necessarily the most natural setting of all. You want to work, you want to find a job that suits you, and you have to interview to get there, but it's not necessarily something that you choose to do, or that is in line with your actual experience. So if you feel it, just know that most likely the other person, and to some extent, is also feeling a little weird, because they're not used to doing that all day, or or maybe, I mean, if they did that, then they would probably be like either recruiters or have a talk show. So just like be friends with that and understand that the setting is not necessarily natural. And I'm talking about a whole process. When you're going all the way to getting that job and going through 2-3 interviews, be friends with that feeling, and you will be able to deal with it better. And also prepare, because it does make a difference. If you know that you get a little nervous or that you feel too strange doing what you're doing when you're just sitting and talking to a person one-on-one about whatever they want to ask, prepare. Try to go over your resume and look at the dates so that you have them more or less fresh. Remember your prior jobs. Imagine those very cliche questions that you will encounter throughout a process, and go from there. Just understand that it's normal that it happens to you if you feel like that, and that you can deal with it because it's absolutely normal. Don't feel that you are at disadvantage compared to other people because you're feeling that way, because it's most likely other candidates are feeling the same way. So I would just honestly recommend that you go through it as a game. It's role playing, and you may be really good at it.
I love that advice. I love that advice. Okay, so you're touching on something that the next question is leaning towards, about, you know, preparing for the event. And I would just love to maybe dive in deeper there. So this next question reads, how can we best prepare for this event? Should we do some research about the companies, etc.? So Cata, can you dive in a little bit more with, you know, how someone can maybe prepare? You mentioned the resume, just reviewing the resume and things like that. And what about, you know, just to kind of get rid of the nerves and maybe make sure that they're showing their best selves in the moment on camera?
If it's a matter of a conversation where you have questions, for example, and this is not always easy. It seems very simple, but it's not always that easy. Make sure that your questions are open questions. Try not to ask things that can be answered with a yes or a no, because that will make your conversation very awkward. And that's exactly what you don't want when you're nervous. So make sure that your questions are the way that, I mean, you have a thought before it comes out, make sure that it's open enough so that the person in front of you can give you the most information out of that one question. Because it makes a huge difference when you're asking a person, for example, do you like working at PowerToFly? Or what do you like most about working at PowerToFly? Right? It's a whole different conversation, and it's so simple, so simple. But sometimes we do go to those closed questions because we already have a set answer in our minds. So we're kind of like answering at the same time that we're asking, and that doesn't allow for a good conversation. And if you happen to get a question from a person that is closed, a question that you could answer as a yes or no, translate it into an open question. So what you want to know is what I like the most about working here. Yeah, I like working here, but what I like the most, try to translate it so that the conversation offers more possibilities, I think, is a good tip.
That's great. And Marina, I see you nodding as well. Would you like to add anything? How can we best prepare for this event?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things, like doing research, definitely, like making sure you know what companies are going to be out there. In this case, in particular for this specific virtual job fair, it's going to be a huge one. There's going to be 17 different companies, so it's a lot. Wow. It's going to be pretty crazy if you want to attend everyone. So pick the top 3 maybe that you really don't want to miss, and do your research there. So make sure, do your research means go to their website, go to their company page in our PowerToFly platform as well to see more information about how their diversity and equity and inclusion initiatives they have. Make sure you know what roles are open in those companies. Of course, what is it that the company does? Anything you can do your research in advance, and make sure that there are some openings in those companies that you believe are going to be a good fit for you and that you would be interested in. So that will probably narrow down a bit the sessions that you are going to be attending, because then you can focus on the ones that really will have more opportunities for you, or more opportunities that are a bit more relevant to what you want to achieve. So that's one. Then I would say, after knowing where you're getting into, also make sure you prepare yourself with what you need to know about you. So like always trying to have a little elevator pitch, what we call like a kind of a short introduction on who you are, what you've been doing, and what is it that you're looking for. Doesn't need to be something super long. Also be mindful that these events a lot of people attend to this event. So whenever you get the chance to have the mic, it's not going to be too nice to take it over for 30 minutes. Like try to keep it brief and concise so that you can keep the attention of the recruiters or the representatives on the company, and that you can say something that they will remember. Probably will be a great advice. So practice that elevator pitch and make sure that you know how you want to introduce yourself. What is it that you want to say about you that's going to be relevant to that company? Maybe saying something that you've already done your research, that you know they are already working on this new product, they just launched this new whatever, and you are very excited about it. Like always showing your interest and your excitement about something that they offer is great, regardless of what other people think that you need to play it cool. No, don't play it cool. Like go ahead and say it. Like if you're interested, say it. Say what is it that you're interested in, and say why you would be great for that opportunity or to join that team. Why is it that you are interested? So something that will align your interests to what the company is looking for. And then finally, I would say make sure you have your LinkedIn profile and or your resume up to date and ready to be sent out and to shared, if in case a recruiter says, oh, let's continue talking, and also to follow up later. It's great that you already have those self-branding tools ready to go, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say that from the other way around. I just shared my information on the chat. Make sure that you are gathering those, because you will find throughout the event that people will throw their names, their LinkedIn profile, their emails. Make sure that you're copying that somewhere, that you have a doc that's open, that you can copy paste everything that you find interesting there, so that you can organize that information later on and follow up. I would recommend you don't follow up right after the event, probably the next day or 2 days after, so that you stand out a little bit, because it's normal that people just, because of not saving the information that they have, they just go ahead and send the email right away, and it could get lost in the craziness of the event. So since you have the opportunity to do it virtual, follow up the next day, maybe, and keep that information there for whenever. But do that. Like I just shared my LinkedIn profile with you guys and my email. Save it. You never know.
Love these suggestions. I'll also just say, making sure that when you're following up with folks, just as if you're sending people cover letters and things like that, to make sure you have the right company's name. I mean, I know that might even sound like, why is she even saying that? But some people get so excited and they copy and paste and send, and then it's like, oh, you just really
It can happen.
You kind of stepped on your own foot there by calling this company another company because you went so quickly. So Cata, I love the reflection piece. Like take a minute, maybe, the next day also you have some time to maybe do some more research on the website, or go to the social medias, or see some of the things that they have presented, in their 10-minute presentation. And you can take some time, reflect, maybe ask a new question, and then make sure that you have everyone's name correctly and the company's name correctly. Again, so that we're not just going so quickly. We're looking for jobs. We want to do it fast. We want all the things, and then we misspell or we don't have the right company name. So like, take your time and make sure.
Absolutely. And let me add something, like it doesn't work having like a template that you're going to send out to every recruiter that you met. Like really try to customize and tailor each message for each recruiter. If you're interested in 2 or 3 different companies, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to pick only one, but just make sure that you are expressing why you are interested in that opportunity and why you think you would be a great fit for that one in particular, which might not be the same reason why you would be a good fit for the role in another different company. So make sure also to take that time to tailor your introduction email or message or whatever with the specific person that you're reaching out to in company.
And on LinkedIn, when people are connecting on LinkedIn, do you all prefer that people connect and then that's it? Or do you prefer a message like, hey, we met at this virtual career fair, for example? What advice would you give there? Because I know that I hear some people specifically say, make sure you let me know we met at this virtual event. I would love to hear you all speak to that.
It's better because LinkedIn can get a little crazy for a recruiter. So it is better, of course, if you give the recruiter the reference so that they can kind of like immediately see when or where this happened. It will help definitely. Also, feel free to add as many recruiters as you'd like to your LinkedIn network. Recruiters can't always add everyone themselves because there are some limitations. We have a lot of people. So it's always appreciated that the candidate goes ahead and connects first or sends that invitation. And yeah, I would not waste that opportunity of saying, listen, we met. I know you, we're friends. You know, just go ahead. Even if you just saw her name on a yeah, you met. You went to the same event, so you met. Go ahead and use it.
Great.
Yeah, and I would definitely add to that try to add something that will remind that person of you. So if you spoke, like you met at the event, but if you spoke like you were the one that asked this question and saying something that happened, like relating to something that happened in that event or that chat where you met, like I loved when you said this thing. I really, I don't know, and it really caught my eye when you mentioned that you offer this and that. Or I remember you mentioning that you were going to grow this new team. I'd be great for it. So try to say something that that person will remind of you if there was any chance of that happening. And also, if that's not the case, or even adding to that, ask try to open a conversation with that message. Don't waste the message, the connection message in just, I'd love to connect. Like, why would you like to connect? Like, I've heard you're looking for a job for software engineers. I have this background. I'm an expert in this and that. I would love to have a conversation. Please let me know if we can talk. When is a good time? Like, try to engage into something. If it's not the right time, then at least that recruiter will know when to contact you back if there's any opportunity coming back. Maybe in the near future or something like that. It's always easier to find those messages if you know who that person is.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you both so much for diving in deep there. All right, so I see we have a question in the chat box. So it's actually tied to one question that was submitted previously to the chat. So I'm going to kind of skip a couple questions just so we can kind of combine the two. So this question that was previously submitted reads, I'm currently in Nigeria and would require sponsorship from potential employers, and I believe employers shy away from this. How can I present myself as valuable enough for potential employers to give me an opportunity? So this was submitted previous to the chat, and now someone currently is writing, I'm interested in companies that offer sponsorships for work visas. Can you all speak to this? How to best ask the question, especially if this participant wrote, she or he has seen that they shy away from this. How can someone confidently ask this in the virtual career fair?
It's a question. It's a valid question. It's something that you can just go ahead and ask. I mean, companies, it's hard to tell sometimes. Companies have different abilities to sponsor at times. It depends on the team. It's not necessarily, in all honesty, related to the skill set of the candidate. It's sometimes that their budget doesn't allow, or that they already have sponsored too many people in that specific team. So, and only they know. So it is really a very valid question. Just go ahead and ask it straight forward, go for it. And they should be able to answer honestly what's going on. Listen, we can't sponsor for this role at the moment. Okay. Other companies may be open to a lot of, I mean, they may have that in their budget that they're going to sponsor 20, 25 people that year. So it's always worth asking. I wouldn't exclude myself from processes before getting that opportunity to actually ask, because it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. And as I said, if you hear from someone that applied to that job and they didn't give it to them a year ago, it can change. Those things change. So don't let like an impression or a story from someone else discourage you. Just keep going forward and ask the question. It is something that many companies do, but it's not very common that they will advertise either. I mean, they won't say, okay, we are sponsoring, because it could get very crazy in terms of people applying or and applying only because of the matter of the visa instead of the job itself. So it's something that you have to do with a job that you are really interested about, or a company, and just go ahead and ask. There's honestly no other way of knowing, and sometimes they won't even think about it until you ask. And then they will consider, okay, I like your resume. I think we can manage. It can happen. So always ask, and don't be shy about asking.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, asking is the best, and also showing that you're interested in that role and why you would be a good fit for that position and that company. So always go to that, because that's the basic. Maybe they won't, if they need to give you a short answer, they might say we're not, but because they don't know you, they don't even know if you're a good fit. So before doing that, make sure that you present yourself like a really strong candidate, why you would be a strong candidate, and then asking that question. And the other thing, so I'm not sure if this person in particular is looking to relocate to the US and really wants a work permit in the US, but if that's not the case and it's just finding a job remotely, know that even before the pandemic, but even more now, there are a lot of opportunities remote. There are a lot of companies that have opened up that realize that they can hire great talent across the globe without the need of sponsoring visas, just by having contractors or hiring people from another places in the world. There are a lot of multinational companies with offices across the globe. So there are other options to work remotely and work globally than just a US work visa, which we always know it's a bit tricky. This has been like that historically. So know that it's not, that shouldn't limit your possibilities. You can still find a wonderful job from home working remotely if you're okay with that as well.
I love these responses. And based on, I mean, Cata, you were saying things can change at any moment. Would an appropriate response be, so if the response is no, we don't sponsor, could an appropriate question then be, do you expect in the future, or is it just, you all are never open to sponsorships? Is there a nice follow-up question, or should it just stop at the no?
No, it's also valid. The thing is that, well, everyone wants, there isn't a need at a company. The idea is to be able to close that that posting as soon as possible. So it can happen that it reopens, or it could be a company that is larger and they happen to be hiring software engineers year round in different teams. So it's a very valid question, and still I think the person should try to connect with that recruiter via LinkedIn, maybe a follow-up email. Here's my resume just in case. Maybe share it with a colleague if you can. It might not be that specific company, but I may have information about a colleague that is looking for something similar in another environment. So never be afraid to ask. If the worst thing that can happen is that you don't get a reply for that email because it was a crazy day. That's the worst thing that can happen. And if you don't, send it again. No worries. Don't be afraid of asking.
Great. All right, so let's move on to this next question here. Again, if this is your question and you're here with us live, let us know that you're here. And if you have anything else, please feel free to drop those in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. Okay, so this question reads, as recruiters, what questions would you like candidates to ask at an event like this?
I think it's not just a matter of what is it that we want to hear, but also what is it that you want to know. So I would always appreciate more a very honest and direct and straightforward question that will show me that you're interested in really knowing what is it that you want to know, instead of just asking what you think I want to answer. So also in this scenario of this job fair in particular, the company will already have an opportunity for 10 minutes or 15 minutes to do a presentation. So everything important or what they feel is more relevant that they want to share, they will share it during those 10 minutes. So also big recommendation, if you really are interested in a company, make sure that you attend that short presentation, because that will probably answer many of your most basic questions about how they work, their culture, their values, what is it that they're looking for, what's their hiring process. Each company will present different things, but mostly when they will share basic information that they might save you a question. Also, you might only have the chance to ask one question if there's a lot of people participating. So make sure that you ask what you really want to know, what is that you are interested in. Do you want to know what are the growth opportunities? Do you want to know what their initiatives in diversity and inclusion are? What is it that you want to know about that opportunity? Then go ahead and ask it. And if it's uncomfortable, if it's something that you are not sure if the recruiter is going to like it, they will probably, it's going to be best for you to know what is it that you have on the other side. Remember that when you are interviewing, and this is not just for the job fair, but when you are interviewing in general, it's not just the company getting to know you, it's you getting to know the company as well. You need to also choose working there. There are a million companies out there. I know sometimes it gets frustrating when you're looking for a job and you really need a job and really want to work now. But also, I always say it's best to take the time to find the right job for you rather than jumping into something that will take a lot of your energy and time and then won't work in 2 months if you are not going to feel comfortable, or if it's not going to provide you what is it that you really wanted to. So take the time to do your research, to ask the tough questions, and to make sure that if you get an interview and you get a job, it's in the right place for you, where you are going to be able to feel comfortable working, basically.
I was just thinking, the question is, as a recruiter, what I want them to ask me, or because I got a little confused with that, because if it's about a recruiter, ask anything, that's our job. We should be able to work with whatever, having or not an answer. It's still all right if you ask. If I don't have an answer, I'll find out for you. That's the idea. But since we do have these companies that are showing themselves, it's possible that you have representatives from the company that are necessarily recruiters. And if you do, please use them. And that would make me as a recruiter very happy, because as you know, you first have to go through a couple of recruiters before getting to talk to a person from an actual team, a colleague or a manager. But if you happen to have that access during the event, use it. If you have a question that is more technical than you wouldn't normally ask a recruiter, it can happen. Or if it's very specific to your job. This is what Maru was saying recently about whatever you want to know about the job. If you want to know what their budgets look like, if you want to know exactly what technology or tools they use for testing software, that kind of stuff, if you feel like the person is present, go ahead and do that, because that helps us as recruiters also. But in terms of only recruiters, ask whatever, that's our job. Just use us, because that's what we're for. You can go ahead and ask anything that is genuinely coming from interest in that process, in that role, in that company. You don't have to worry about us being able to answer or not. That's our problem.
it's funny because as you all are speaking, I'm just reviewing the questions that were submitted, and I'm just there's a lot of, is it okay to ask? Would it be appropriate to ask? So it's like about salary, about like, is there maternity leave? It's like, yes, I think that we can just understand from the first, 45 minutes of this conversation. Yes, it's okay to ask any question that you need to ask. Just make sure that you are, of course, being respectful of time, of just the scenario. So presenting yourself, asking your question, being concise. So yes, ask questions. I mean, I'm answering this right now. So I'm just going to actually flip the question. Instead of would it be appropriate to ask about salary ranges during the virtual career fair, how can someone ask in a way that, maybe this person feels nervous. I mean, of course, money makes us all feel like, oh, I don't know how to speak about money. So what's like a way a way to ask, instead of this question reading, is it okay? It's like, how do you ask?
Easiest way to ask is giving your information first. So this is what I want to make. Is this a possibility? Or I am at this number. Is it going to work out? It's the best way to go. I would like to use this space to share something with you guys that is important. You have to know that recruiters, we're always on your side in terms of salaries. We are not trying to lower that number. On the contrary. So you don't have, and this is when you're talking to a recruiter, when you start this conversation, you're not negotiating. It's not grounds for negotiation. It's really just a matter of exchanging information. So don't be afraid of mentioning your salary because it's low or you feel it's low for what you're doing. You can say that, listen, I'm very low right now. And the reason I want to move is because I want to go higher. I wouldn't move if I'm not. That's the kind of things that you can share with your recruiter. I would definitely not recommend begin the conversation with money, because it's kind of like, but wait, you don't know anything about the job. You don't know anything about the company. I understand that money is important and we work because we want money. No one's judging because of that. But there are some kind of steps that you have to go through before coming to that. Unless there's something that seems like a red flag to you and you feel like, oh no, I don't think they're going to pay me enough or not what I want to make right now, then just ask, listen, I'm at this number and I would like to have a 10-15% increase. Is that a possibility? And then the recruiter can tell you, listen, no, we're actually paying the same that you are making right now. But I can find out about benefits for you. Maybe it will work, or you don't have to go to the office. I mean, it is a conversation that is worth having. But the best way to do it is sharing first. It's a little bit like dating. You have to share first if you want that information from the other person. It's kind of like that.
I agree with you on a one-on-one scenario of an interview. I don't think that approach might be too appropriate for a virtual career fair, because you might not want to share your salary with other people. So everything that Kata said, I know. That's why I'm clarifying, because I know you and I know that you are talking about, like, you want to train people on how to talk about this on a one-on-one scenario when you are being interviewed by a recruiter. And everything that Kata said is 100% true. Always know that you are a conversation, that your recruiter wants the best for you. And we are happy. The more that the company can pay you, we are happier than you are, probably, because it means that we're doing our job well and giving you the best opportunity. So that's perfect. Now, for the virtual career fair, in fact, and that type of scenario, I would really think, like, going back to what I said before, like, you might have the shot of one question only. Make sure that you really care so much about salary that is the only shot you want to to waste in salary. Like, really think if really that's what you want to know in a virtual career fair. So if it is, then go ahead and ask. If it's not, really, I'm sure there might be a lot of, I mean, it all comes to what are your drivers for change? What is it that drives you to make a change? If you really are just wanting to make more money wherever the job is, you can add, like, every time you want to ask about salary, my recommendation would be talking about ranges rather than just one number. I don't think a recruiter or a representative in a company will talk about money in a virtual career fair either. So I don't think it's worth wasting your one question talking about money. You make sure you talk about how good you are and how much you want that job, and make sure that you will have a follow-up to have a conversation, a one-on-one, where you can then talk about money. Try not to bring money to the table on that first.
It's not the place. It's not the place. I mean, it is the place to get those contacts and follow up with that question on a one-on-one basis. But that definitely, it might have. Thanks for catching that.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone has asked and everyone has talked and it's been 40 minutes of talking about everything, and the only last thing to know of is salary, and you want to say, do you have a specific budget range? Yeah. Also, instead of money, if you really want to know more about the compensation package, maybe it's talking about the compensation package and not the salary, which will probably go more into what are the benefits, what are the perks that you offer, and also think of that in advance. Also, advice for other interviews that you might have. Don't just stick with a number. There might be other things that you might care for that might not be the salary. In maybe it's an insurance, it's something for your family, another type of benefits, PTO, whatever you value. There's a lot of other things rather than just a pay base.
And that is a very good question for an event. If you ask about their compensation package, what kind of benefits they have, it would also give you an idea of their culture. The way it is presented and what they are. Most companies have something that is different from the others, and that kind of tells a lot about them. So that is definitely a good question for I mean, a group of people from that same company. If it comes up, there will probably be a good answer coming from that. But yeah, not the number. That's a one-on-one thing, I would say.
Great. Thank both of you for clarifying that. I know that it is a big piece of the puzzle, but I love that you are saying, to maybe maximize your time in other ways, and maybe if there is more time later, and just try to get your foot in the door to try to get that, next, negotiation phase, which comes far later. Of course, you said you have to go through several rounds. And for me, you all have hit on this question, but I just want to raise it, as I know maybe more people might have this particular question in mind. So speaking of benefits and all of that, asking about that, this question reads, how can we ask about their maternity or paternity leave policy without raising any red flags? How can we ask about their benefits? And I just want to raise this because I know that a lot of things seem to be taboo for a lot of people, in this kind of setting. So I would just love to hear both of you speak to that.
I would say that if anything, doing it at the career fair is easier than on a one-on-one basis. So if you really want to know, go ahead and ask it just the way it is. It's part of the compensation package, and it talks about the culture in the company. And you're not in a process at the moment, so you won't feel like you're confessing to something or something. So just ask it. It will give you a good feel of how they handle topics that are important also. So it's a good thing to do. And I think that would be actually a very good moment to ask that question, for example.
Yeah, I agree. And as a mom myself, I know those questions are tough to ask, but also as Mariela was saying, I think we need to start removing the thought that it's going to be a red flag to ask about maternity leave. I mean, we are women, we work, we can be moms and we can work too. So it shouldn't be taboo to ask about those things. Probably the companies already have a lot of working moms in there as well. So and also another good thing about doing, for your question, you're going to do a virtual job fair with PowerToFly. PowerToFly is a company. I mean, we are advocating for you guys, for you moms, for you people that are taking care of others and maybe had to take time off, or that you are doing many things at the same time. All the companies that come to us and sponsor our events, they also advocate for that. They are also open to diversity and inclusion, and that's a very big part of actually having the
¿Qué dice? Mayra, ¿qué dice?
Hello. I'm going to put you on mute. Yes. speak. I think that was an accident, but I'm going to put you all on mute. Let me know if you'd like to hop off, and I will give you all access to that. Sorry about that. We've got about 8 minutes, just also so that everyone knows. Actually, I would love to touch on. Person keeps hopping off mute. I'm just going to. Perfect. Looks like they're out of Zoom. Great. Also, I'm not afraid as a moderator to kick people out if it's distracting or handle their devices because it is distracting for the conversation. Okay, so we've got about 8 minutes left. So is there anything else that you both would like to touch on? Otherwise, I can continue reading from this list of questions here, but anything come to mind based on the reflections that you've had so far in this past hour, maybe something that you all are looking forward to, anything else you want to touch on in these next couple of minutes?
You mean us or the audience or anyone?
Everyone, but specifically I'm speaking to my guest speakers, since I know the chat box here, but yeah, both of you for my guest speakers, is there anything else that you want to highlight or talk about here?
No, I think we've touched on most of the important things. I can't think of anything like major that we left off. So if you have any other questions that you feel might be good to, I don't know, refresh anything we already said or touch on things that we missed, would be great.
Yeah, actually, let's go to this. You all spoke about the elevator pitch. And I know some people might not even know what that is. I come from Los Angeles and the elevator pitch is it's on every corner. Make movies and things like that. But just for those who don't know why it's called the elevator pitch. So imagine that, you catch an elevator and Martin Scorsese is there and you want to be in his next film, but you only have 12 floors on the elevator to let him know why you should be the lead character in his next film. That is what an elevator means. And so maybe if you can refresh our memories, how can we just set up that nice little short and sweet 1 or 2 minute, however many minutes you all think, so that people can at least have that as a solid foundation, knowing, okay, at least, I'm going to think about my question, but I want to be able to present myself in a short elevator pitch.
Yeah, well, that's a big part. I do career coaching, and that's the toughest part of every type of session we do, because it's something that you need to network. You need to put it in your about section, in your resume, in your LinkedIn. So everywhere you have that room to do an elevator pitch. So very short tips. You have to, it's your introduction. It's who you are, what you're good at, what summarizes who you are and what you're here for. What's your purpose? What's your career purpose in this case? And try to make it relevant, so you can tweak it depending on who you're talking to. So try to make it relevant to the person that you're talking to. If it's a recruiter, if it's a specific company. So who you are. So I am what we just did. What is it that is like, if I'm a lot of things, but if I am introducing myself to, if I'm introducing myself to a work scenario where people will only care about who I am as a professional, I might not say I'm also a mom, I also have 2 kids, and I live where, you might want to target to what the other person would want to know. Like if you have a strong career on something. So I'm a software developer, major in, I don't know, been working for 15 years in Java, and I'm an expert in this type of products, same as the ones that I see that you are developing right now. So that's why I'd love to know more about what opportunities you have for me, for example, something like that. So make sure that you know what are your strongest skills, how you present yourself, and how that's relevant to who you are addressing.
Yeah. Who you are, where you're coming from, and where you're going, or where you want to go would be, it sounds easy. It's not. You have to think about it a lot, but it's basically that you present yourself. I am Catalina. This is where I'm coming from, and this is where I want to go with you guys.
Yeah, and you can also find inspiration in, if you go to LinkedIn, for example, and try to look for profiles similar to yours and find other people using words that if you feel like you're lacking words, or practice, write it down, say it out loud, practice it, record yourself, listen to it, ask a friend, call your mom, call someone, like, what do you think about this? Does this talk about me? And yeah, practice, and then it will just come to you.
And I know, of course, both of you said it's easier said than done. So of course, having that time to reflect. So let's just add another layer to this. For a lot of folks who are career pivoting, in that elevator pitch, how can they best express, I come from theater and film and I'm looking to do XYZ and this is the change I want to make in the world. I don't know, how can they be more, I guess, technical, also showing their soft skills, because of course emotional intelligence is important, but for folks who are specifically transitioning careers or career pivoting, how would you, what advice would you give just in that to consider in the elevator pitch?
So I think that sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that many skills are transferable, even if they don't seem like they are at the very beginning. And this takes, again, time, thought, maybe some writing down, some brainstorming. But once you are very clear on those skills that are transferable, work with them. Just go around that. I'm not sure what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say exactly the example that Mariela just gave, but just add the why. So I come from this and I want to do that. Okay, why? Why is it that you come from there and you want to do that? And the why will probably give you the enough reasons showing what are those transferable skills. So I've been working as an actress for the past 10 years and I developed, I realized I'm great in communication and I'm great doing this and that. And I excel doing this and that, which is why I believe I would also be great at doing career coaching, because I don't know, whatever, I'm just making it up, but what is it from your background? What is it that you've learned that brought you where you are today and can take you to where you want to go next? So yeah, again, it's, as Kata was saying just now, practice, think of it, take a moment to think of why. You probably already know this, but put it in writing if it's necessary, or record yourself and make sure that you have your story. It's your story. Know your story. You are your lead in your story. You are the best to know what that needs to be like, and you are the ones that are going to pick the right words to let everyone else know you. So
if it makes sense, if it makes sense to you, it will make sense to the person listening to you, most likely.
Awesome. Well, time has flown by. I really hope that you all who have joined us here for the hour, I think that since there weren't many questions that came up in the chat box, I'm assuming that everyone has been satisfied with questions that were submitted previous. But again, Kata and Maru have put their LinkedIns in the chat box, so make sure that they're offering that extra step to further connect. So again, you want to put that to use, and of course, be respectful of everyone's time, present yourself. This is your story, like they were saying, be confident in your story. And we look forward to seeing you next week at our Lifting Latinx Voices All Over the World Summit, and also the virtual career fair that I'm happy to be a part of, as well as I know that our guest speakers are. So good luck to everyone. Thank you, Kata. Thank you, Maru. Thank you, everyone who's joined us here today.